As First Lady, former First Lady Michelle Obama, she found herself as one of the most visible women in the world. But growing up, she says she was haunted by self-doubt. That's just one of the revelations in her new memoir. It's called Becoming. Last night, the former First Lady launched her book tour in her hometown of Chicago with Oprah. Only on CBS This Morning, we spoke backstage to Oprah about the book and coming home.
I got the best night because I get to come home to sweet home Chicago, and she is the South Side of Chicago hometown girl.
We're back in Chicago.
We're in Chicago.
We're in Chicago.
And we get to share that energy with the audience.
Welcome, Michelle Obama!
And I love a good book. And I almost didn't choose this one just because everybody would say, oh, yeah, of course you're choosing that book because Michelle Obama's your friend. But the book was too good not to choose.
We're home.
We're home. Everybody's story matters. The significance of her story is that it started with such humble beginnings, but with love and support of family. And that when you have that, you can do just about anything. The value of her story is that it lets everybody know that your story is equally as valuable, even though you may not make it to the White House.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Everybody's story is valuable.
Yeah. That's the thing about Michelle Obama. She's relatable and inspiring. That was the first book tour kickoff. She's going to 10 cities here in the United States, and then they're going national. Paris.
Oh, international.
Yeah, international. Paris, London. You know, she is very popular around the world, and
that's
already those are sold out.
That's going to keep that book at #1 for a long time.
People want to hear from her.
A lot of people hope that's the case. In part 2 of our conversation, Michelle Obama describes learning that she was not alone in wondering, am I good enough? You've been out of the White House for 662 days.
Oh.
Whoa. How's it going?
It's going okay.
I want people to get a sense, Michelle, of your life because...
Yeah. My life now?
Your life now. And that first day, it's one of those rare moments. I call it Toastgate, for lack of a better thing. Toastgate.
This is how I open up the book.
Yes.
It's sort of the life that I was living months after we had moved out of the White House. I was alone for the first time in a long time because for 8 years prior to that, I had lived a life where I was always with somebody. There was always a constant presence in the White House. But that day, Barack was traveling, Malia was in college, Sasha was somewhere doing something.
Yeah.
And it was just me and Bo and Sonny, my dogs. And I did what I didn't do for 8 years, which was open up my own cupboard, pull out some bread, and make some cheese toast.
Did you remember how to do that?
I remembered, but I still had cheese toast skills.
Throughout the book, there was a lot of, am I good enough? You're told by a school counselor you're not Princeton material. Why did that not destroy you at the time?
Well, because fortunately, it was the direct opposite of everything I'd ever been told about myself. I had grown up with love and support and encouragement and high expectations. But here I walked into this room with a woman who really didn't know me because it was a big high school, and she had to make a quick assessment. And her assessment could have been, and I don't know, was grade point average. Yeah, you're a good student. You know, your scores are good. You're black. You're here in this public school. Maybe you're stretching. She didn't even know my brother went to Princeton. She didn't ask me any questions
about it.
She didn't try to figure me out. She just decided that the dream I presented was wrong. But let me tell you, we could probably go into any room of black women or people of color or people who grew up in poor communities or rural communities, and you'd ask them, has anybody ever told you you couldn't? And everyone would raise their hand.
You get to Princeton, and one of the first things you notice is they're not smarter than me.
So now I'm expecting brilliance, genius. And then what I discover is, wow, there's a lot of arbitrariness to this stuff, you know, because while a lot of students are sort of criticized, there's a debate about affirmative action when it comes to race. What I point out is that I got to Princeton, I realized there's all kinds of affirmative action that goes on. There are kids who get in because they're athletes. There are kids who get in because there's a legacy. It's just that race stands out. But it was important for me to see that.
Are you tired of the way the country is going? Are you mad enough?
Did you feel you were judged differently? Because you write in the book, your grace would have to be earned. You knew that you felt you could not stumble.
Yeah. Well, I had experienced that over the course of the campaign. I mean, I write in chapter 17. That chapter was probably one of the hardest for me to write, and it's the hardest still for me to read, because it goes over a painful time in the campaign when I thought I was doing great, telling my story, sharing it honestly, but my whole persona was distorted. This was the time I was called an angry black woman. I was called Obama's baby's mama. I was called someone who didn't love her country. And it's important for me to paint all that, because people don't remember that. They see Michelle Obama now, especially young girls, and they were too young to know that part of my journey.
Let's go back to angry black woman. How did you process that? What did you, when you heard that?
It's like
it's painful.
It's like the punch in the gut that the counselor. It was another series of punches. Someone who judged me without knowing me. It was just happening at a bigger level. But I had to draw on the same foundation of I cannot let one or two or a few people's judgments of me control me. And at that point, I had thought about getting off the campaign trail.
You went to Barack Obama and said,
"Yeah, I was like, look, if I'm not an asset, then just pull me out." And he was like, "No, you're the closer. We need you out there." And so I had to get myself together. I'm going to have to show the world that I do belong. I am good enough to be the First Lady. I do love my country.
And just think about this, guys. She said there's no handbook about being First Lady. So she's put on the campaign trail, no notes, no talking points, no real team, just her and two other staffers, no speeches. They did it all themselves. Even hair and makeup was all left to them. All these things matter when you're out on the road. But Michelle Obama's ratings, or way people felt about her, many times were higher than Barack Obama's. You meet her and you spend time with her. People of all ages fell in love with her.
And that First Lady's role has never been defined.
Yes.
It's always been something, it reflects the person in the office, because as she pointed out too, that doesn't have a staff, it doesn't have a budget, they just kind of work within that. But I find so fascinating her talking about self-doubt.
Yes.
Vulnerability and resilience. And I think that's a universal message. And that title, Becoming something despite all that self-doubt and the people who tell you you're not good enough.
She asked a lot in the book, many times, am I enough? Am I good enough? And I think at the end of the day, she can now say, and she believes, yes, I am good enough.
And she worked her way up to be the closer,
Yes.
right? The closer. Remember that speech at the DNC
I do
convention?
remember.
Yeah.
But the reason she knew she was good enough was because of her parents. Those good parents.
Good, solid
Oh my
foundation.
gosh. So
That's a perfect segue to this.
I know, see?
Thank you, Nora.